Greetings, my fellow freaks and weirdos. I'm Tom, and welcome to Monster Gab, where we love to talk about classic and vintage horror. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Hausu, a Japanese horror film, also known as Hausu, from 1977. Reviewing this movie will be difficult, as I don't think I will truly be able to emphasize what I want to say about it. Describing this film is impossible. When I tell you the synopsis for this film, it will just sound like a generic horror story, but it's the contents within that makes it stand out from any other film I've ever seen in my life. It's just one of those films you have to see for yourself to know what I mean. Anyway, I'm going to try my best. So here is the synopsis then. A young girl named Angel has broken up from school for the summer holidays. Angel planned to go on vacation with her widowed father until she learns he has remarried a young beautiful woman. Upset and outraged, Angel changes her plans and decides to spend the summer at her aunt's home in the countryside, along with 6 of her school friends. There's Fantasy, a daydreamer who likes to take photographs. Kung Fu, a skilled fighter with athletic qualities. Prof, the brains of the group, with high intelligence and problem-solving abilities. Sweetie, a delightful young girl who enjoys cleaning. Melody, a talented musician. And Mac, who has a big appetite and likes to eat. A lot. During their stay, they experience supernatural events, as it appears the country home is haunted. The girls encounter traps and are attacked by objects within the home before they each begin to disappear one by one. Angel's aunt also begins to display strange behaviour, as there seems to be more to their stay than just a haunted house caper. Hey horror fans, this video is sponsored by Zealous Rebellious Clothing, who believe in encouraging self-confidence, self-expression and the pursuit of passions without compromise. Based in North Wales, they use their passion for classic cars, music, film and societal non-conformity to inspire their designs, with hoodies, t-shirts, hats and much more, using only quality materials and prints. Be different, be rebellious. Zealous Rebellious Clothing. Check out their website, Facebook page and other socials, links in the description below. Let's talk about this movie then, and where the hell do I begin? The movie itself is in the Japanese language, but English subtitles are there should you need them. If that is something that puts you off, all I will say is you are truly missing out, as there is nothing else quite like this film. The movie is described as a horror comedy, and I understand why, though I'd actually disagree. I'd say it's more satire than comedy. Sure, it does not take itself seriously, but I believe this is more of a stylistic choice. Don't expect a belly full of laughs. And be sure, this film is macabre, it's dark, it's twisted, and it's gory. There is no single word to describe this movie, but if I had to pick one, it would be crazy. Like, off the wall crazy. The back of the DVD I have here describes it as a mixture of bubblegum teen melodrama and grisly phantasmagoria, a deranged fairy tale. It's a fever dream! It's like watching a drug-infused hallucination. In fact, if you took something hallucinogenic before watching this film, well, it's not something that I would recommend you should do. But why, I hear you ask? I will try to explain. I would say it's mostly due to how the movie is shot, cut and edited, how it looks, and how it's paced, which is very fast towards the end. The colours, the lighting, the camera angles that are used, the special effects and the animation. Everything about how this movie is put together is so unorthodox. There are no traditional methods to how this movie is made, and so as a result, it's almost a genre of its own. I'd say it's a work of art. But then there's the characters and the acting and the dialogue. It's all very offbeat, but then it's all intentional too. It feels like watching a live action cartoon, and any moment that's deemed funny or humorous to me comes across as disturbing and ominous, like it's almost ironic. Seriously, I watched this film on my own in the dark late one night, and it was so unsettling, but in a way that I can't describe. Then there are the events that take place in this film, which I don't really want to describe because it's kind of a spoiler, and I would implore that you do avoid any trailers for this film and just go in knees deep. I suppose if I was to give one example, just so you have an idea of what goes on in this film, let's just say if someone was to lose their head, the head might still talk or float around a little bit. That is a very weak and poor example, but I don't want to say any more. Just watch the film. But yeah, the events that take place in this movie are just ridiculously unrealistic. But that's how the movie is meant to be. It's meant to be just out of this world and mind-blowing. This is the first film for director Nobuhiko Obayashi, as he'd only directed TV commercials beforehand. That would make sense too, as the effects used in Hausu are what you expect in a brash, bold and loud TV commercial as opposed to a movie. But it works! It goes with the experimental approach that the movie is going for. Weirdly enough, the effects and the animation in this film are so dated and severely aged, and yet they're not, and they haven't. It's the rough rawness of those effects that really makes this film and complements its psychedelic style. This movie could never be made in modern day and have the same essence. Those effects and animations are simply techniques that aren't used today, and yet they're a big part of this movie's image. Let's just say that this movie was meant to be made in the time that it was, and for that reason, I'm glad that they made it. I'm glad that this movie exists. The music in this film consists of an original soundtrack of pieces you wouldn't expect to hear in a horror movie. It's a fusion of jazz, funk, rock, with the odd ballad and waltz for good measure. There is a melody which is the movie's main theme song, and you will hear it many times throughout the film, but in different styles and genres. Mostly though, it's a slow piano piece, and you will be familiar with it by the end of the film. Let's talk about the pros and the cons of this movie then, and the biggest pro for me has to be the style of this movie. It's just so original. It has incredible imagery and aesthetics, even uses of painted backdrops. But because of this imagery and the aesthetics, it's like experiencing a nightmare rather than a movie. It is quite the experience. I don't know how else to describe it. It's artistic and experimental. Another pro for me is the fact that this movie used amateur actors. Many of them had never starred in anything before. Now usually that would probably be a con, but in this case it works with the style of the movie. Of course, this movie is meant to be offbeat, and all of that inexperience, if you like, goes with the offbeat vibe. And one final pro for me is the use of the special effects, as in the trick photography, the editing, and the animation. Everything's just so wacky and cartoonish, and it makes the film what it is. As for the cons of this movie, the biggest con for me is the overuse of the music. Not the style of the music itself, but just the way it's used throughout the movie. Like I said earlier, there is a melody that you will get familiar with in this film, and I feel like it's just overplayed a little bit. Sometimes I feel this movie loses a bit of its tension due to the use of the music. There are some real horrific scenes in this movie, and I feel like there shouldn't have been music during those scenes, or maybe a different choice of music. If that was a case, I believe that this movie actually would have been a bit scarier, but that's just my opinion. Another con for me, kind of, is the sound quality. At least the sound quality on this DVD anyway was pretty poor and distorted at times. Now there are different releases of this film, as in different DVDs and Blu-rays, and for what I've researched there are some differences between the films too. A lot of it has to do with some of the dialogue, and even some of the characters' names are slightly different too. For instance, the lead character Angel is known as Gorgeous in other releases. Now I don't know if the version I have just has poor sound quality, and maybe there are other releases where the sound quality is better, but the version I watched was heavily distorted. I have to kind of contradict myself here a little bit, because the distortion for me personally kind of went with the wackiness of the film, or at least gave it the charm, because it is an old film after all. But I would imagine that most people would prefer a cleaner audio if there was one available. I literally don't know if that's the case. And one final con, I suppose, is the fact that this film is very slow paced at the beginning and takes a while to pick up. I personally didn't mind that actually, but then I do like slow burner movies, but I know some people probably wouldn't like that aspect. As for rating this film out of 10, I'd originally given it 8 out of 10, but I'm just giving it some thought now, and I really did enjoy this movie in a way that I've not enjoyed a movie before. But if I give it anything higher than 8, I'm kind of classing it up there with masterpieces, you know, like Frankenstein for instance. Would I call this film a masterpiece? I mean, is it a masterpiece? It's certainly a work of art. It's very experimental and it's just mind-blowingly crazy. Do you know, I really enjoyed the film and I would definitely watch it again. I might have to give it 9 out of 10. Yeah, 9 out of 10. It's definitely worth a watch and I highly recommend it. If you like crazy stuff happening in your films and you love horror but you want something a bit different, I've got to recommend this film. Anyway guys, have you seen this movie and what did you think? Please let me know in the comments section. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't seen this movie, are you willing to check it out now that you've seen this review? I do implore that you at least check it out once. It's mad. It's like nothing else you've ever seen. Anyway folks, that is all we've got time for in this episode, and until next time. I don't know who they are, but if you don't subscribe, they will get you. So make sure you are indeed subscribed, click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new video here on Monster Gab. Like the video if you did indeed like it, share this with your friends and leave that comment down there. Thank you so much for stopping by, take care, see you soon, bye bye.